If you are just tuning in, whether in the United States or anywhere around the globe, there is horrific breaking news this hour. I'm Jake Tapper. You're watching The Lead. We are covering this terrorist attack in Istanbul. 2 suicide bombers, according to a Turkish official, exploded themselves inside Istanbul Ataturk Airport. The Turkish Justice Minister at this hour says that at least 10 people have been killed, at least 20 others injured and being rushed to area hospitals. Pentagon officials here in the United States say that the U.S. military is scrambling to do a head count, trying to make sure every single troop across Europe is accounted for. No terrorist group has claimed responsibility as of right now, but we have a reporter, CNN Turk reporter Adem Aydin, who is now at the airport and can bring us this broadcast live. Adem, what are you learning from the scene?
Yes, as you said, I'm at the entrance of Istanbul Ataturk Airport, which is in the north of the city. As you said, the Justice Minister said this was a terrorist attack, and we came here around 45 minutes, 1 hour ago, and by the time we got there, it was already contained. I saw many ambulances, at least 20, and you can still hear some in the background, I assume. And 10 people died, as the Justice Minister said, and 20 people were injured. I saw one of them. One of the injured he was lightly injured, but they're the ones with heavy injuries as well. Now the police are pushing us back, and they're trying to remove us from the entrance. And it's a bit hectic out here. You can hear the sirens. These are the sirens of ambulances coming out of Ataturk Airport, which is Istanbul's largest airport. Events like this are very rare in the airport, so this is a novelty in that sense. Something like this happening at the airport. According to eyewitnesses, we heard gunfire in the first place in the car park area, and then later we heard 2 explosions. These were 2 suicide bombers, as you have mentioned. Now the police are pushing us further, and we managed to get in as well before they put this cordon. And what we saw was I saw a baby cart on the floor, and slowly on the floor. I even saw, I'm sad to say, but I saw blood on the floor as well. Mm-hmm. So that belongs to one of the casualties, we must predict. And this is the situation from Istanbul Airport. And we're just, people are waiting here to hear from their loved ones. There's a sense of, it's not panic. I was panicked before. Like angry citizens, they were trying to get in to the airport and the police didn't let them. But now there's a sense of waiting, and this I don't know how. I'm now seeing passengers being evacuated from the airport. Now people are coming out of the airport.
People are being evacuated
from the airport, and now they're walking their way out.
Adem Aydin, if you're just joining us, Adem Aydin is with CNN Turk, CNN's affiliate in Turkey. Adem, do you know what time the attack took place?
As I said, we got here 1 hour ago. I assume this must have happened an hour and a half minutes ago, maximum 2 hours ago.
About 2 hours ago. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Stay with us, Adem. We'll bring you back when you learn some more information. Thanks so much for joining us. I also want to bring in right now another journalist in Istanbul, Andrew Finkel. Andrew, what can you tell us? Has there been any news on whether or not any terrorist group has claimed responsibility for this horrific event?
No one has yet claimed responsibility, and no one has pointed the finger at anyone. But of course, there are the usual suspects. There have been incidents like this in the past. ISIS has been responsible for suicide bombings in Istanbul and in Turkey in the previous year. The PKK, which is a Kurdish group, has also carried out armed attacks inside Turkey, but they tend to go after security targets rather than innocent bystanders. So the smart money, as it were, is on ISIS, on Islamic terrorists, but this is purely speculation at this stage.
Right, speculation. But we should point out that ISIS suicide bombers have targeted Istanbul twice just this year, in January and then again in March. So just in the last few months, ISIS has targeted Istanbul. And Andrew, a friend of mine just returning from Turkey says that business is down significantly in Istanbul because of all the terrorism that's been going on there in recent months.
Well, that's very much the case. That Turkey relies on tourism. It's a major industry here. It provides employment, construction. It's a really big thing in Turkey. But of course, this has been a terrible year, partly not to do with terrorism, because Turkey's in dispute with Russia, and Russia has forbidden its citizens to visit Turkey, which has meant the beaches are sort of empty. But of course, you walk down the street, you go to the restaurants in Istanbul, and it's easy to get a reservation these days. People are just not coming.
Just to recap on some of the ISIS-related terrorism that has happened in recent months in Turkey. In March 2016, a suicide bomber struck a busy tourist area in central Istanbul, killing at least 4 people. In January of this year, ISIS was blamed for a suicide bombing which killed at least 12 German tourists. And then, of course, we all remember last summer where there was an attack. Mostly university-age students were killed, 32 of them, and 100 people were hospitalized. Turkey immediately blaming ISIS. Let's bring in Richard Quest. Richard, you've been to this airport several times as well. We're hearing from people who have been there that the security is rather intense.
It's absolutely intense. It is multi-layered. It is at the front entrance of the terminal. You don't even get into the terminal building unless your bags are x-rayed, and that's even before you've checked in, which is why we're hearing perhaps the explosions took place outside the terminal and not in the terminal itself. But Jake, not only do you end up with this very strict security at the entrance to the terminal, within the terminal itself, there are multiple levels of security right the way through to immigration and beyond. You see, the reason why, Jake, is Ataturk Airport, like Turkey itself, the crossroads between Europe and Asia. So this airport is itself a crossroads. The headquarters and main hub of Turkish Airlines, which has built its entire business on crisscrossing and transferring passengers. Now, you know, most of the passengers are beyond immigration and security. That's where the big business, if you like, takes place. But what you do get at Ataturk, and what you are seeing here, because of the large population in Istanbul itself, you see a large number of people coming in, gathering at the entrance, and that's why you've got a death toll of 10 tonight and near the entrance of the actual airport itself. This is a major hub airport at a crucial city in international transportation.
And Richard, Bob Baer, former CIA operative, was on the show earlier, and others have discussed this, that targeting the international terminal of Istanbul Ataturk Airport is targeting a cosmopolitan symbol. It is targeting someplace that shows how much Turkey is ingrained with Europe, with Asia, with the rest of the world. It would be, although nobody has claimed responsibility for this horrific attack, it would be a natural target for an Islamic terrorist.
Absolutely, because it is at this crossroads, the secular nature on one hand, but obviously the internal tensions over religion on the other. That is why this would be the sort of target they would go for. But one thing that is important is most of the business of Ataturk Airport is done by the transfer of traffic on Turkish Airlines. Now, Turkish has built their entire business on flying people from Europe to the Middle East and on to Asia, changing and connecting, very similar to the US system of hub and spoke. That's what they've been working on, that's what they've been growing, and that's what they've been very successful about. But the Turkish government, recognizing the significance not only of the airline, but the airport and the security threat, has raised an extremely high level of security around it, which makes it even more surprising that both of these explosions were able to take place. But notice, of course, from what we hear in this early stage, not within the terminal building themselves, at least not at the moment as we understand it.
On the periphery, at least according to initial reports, much like the attacks in Brussels a few months ago. Richard, go ahead.
Well, no. Brussels, they got into the departure area.
Okay.
In that particular case, actually through the front door and into the building. In Turkey, along with many other Middle Eastern airports, they take it very seriously. You don't get through the front door of the terminal without your bags being scanned. And because of that security threat at Ataturk, I've been through many times, and your bags get scanned, and your ticket gets looked at, and it's done properly.
I just mean that on the edge of the periphery level, but what you're saying is that the periphery level is even farther out in Turkey than it is in Brussels. Point made. This just into CNN, a White House official says that the assistant to the president for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism, Lisa Monaco, has briefed President Obama on the explosions at the airport in Istanbul, Turkey. Let's go back to CNN Global Affairs correspondent Elise Labit. Elise, you just got some new information. What can you tell us?
That's right, Jake. Well, the U.S. Embassy in Ankara right now is doing a phone tree for all their employees in Istanbul. They're assisting the consulate in Istanbul, which is really overtaxed right now, getting calls from families, getting calls from American citizens on the ground. So they're doing phone trees to try and account for all U.S. personnel. Now, right now, they don't have any indications of any U.S. personnel that were affected or that could have been victims, but they don't know if any of their employees were at the airport at the time. They're also sending consular officers to the airport to see about any American victims. Right now, again, no indications, but it's very early. And you remember during the attacks on the airport in Brussels, how slow it was to get information about victims, the nationalities. The hope is that the Turks will be a little bit it'll work a little bit more smoothly than it did in Brussels. Now, right now, U.S. officials are not leaning towards a responsibility. There's been no claim, obviously. Could it be ISIS? Could it be the PKK? Usually the PKK targets security targets such as the Turkish military or military facilities. But right now they see the airport as a very strategic location. There's been a lot of concern about this airport, but I must say there's been a lot of frustration on the part of U.S. officials about Turkey getting very slow to understand the ISIS threat in the country, that the government has been very preoccupied with its fight against the PKK and their efforts to set up an independent state along the border, that they say that maybe they have slowed down on the job in terms of fighting ISIS, although they have picked up in recent months, Jake.
All right, the State Department in Turkey trying to account for the whereabouts of its personnel. Elise Labit, thanks for that report. Let's right now bring in CNN national security analyst Juliette Kayyem, also with me, CNN senior law enforcement analyst Tom Fuentes. Juliette, what's your initial read on this attack?
Substantively, it's just proof that there will always be soft targets. I mean, in other words, the more you fortify, their target is just going to move 10 steps back. And this is the challenge with relative airport security, any mass transit system.
Juliette, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude. The audio is tough to hear right now. Let's try to get that fixed up so we can bring you back. But right now, let me bring in Tom Fuentes. Tom, right now, what are law enforcement officials in Turkey doing right now to try